Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Cheapseats. This is your number one Premier League show. It's been a roller coaster week. We found out that Spurs is South Africa's team and they beat the champions. Does that mean South Africa is going on an upward trajectory? We saw Arsenal, the table toppers, losing only for 24 hours later for Spurs to do the Lord's work, which was great. Thank you very much, Dean. Manchester United saw the bad side of Casemiro, which is pretty cool because now we know he's got some sort of a disciplinary situation and he likes to put people in chokeholds. But then the fun part was Manchester City. We found out that Manchester City cheated. Or they did, they didn't. We don't know. We'll find out. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Welcome to the show. Remember, the show is sponsored by Classic Shirts today, so please do go to their website and have a look at them. Because we're going with the theme of South Africa's team, Dean, there you go. If you want to support the South African government in their support of Tottenham Hotspur, you might as well just go back to 94, 95 when we got independence and be like, you've been a Spurs supporter for the whole time. Dean, how do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm trying to tell everyone. If you have a South African passport, welcome to the Spurs family. It's not a good time, but you are now a Spurs fan. And what better way than to celebrate it with one of our iconic kits? I've got this one, so it is a goodie.
Yeah.
Any sort of Spurs classic Holston shirt is a good one. But hopefully none of those logos that are coming out where we're sponsored by load shedding schedules and Spur actually come true. I'll leave that to the powers that be. But yeah, we'll see what happens. It's obviously a contentious deal. I don't think it will happen. Hopefully it doesn't happen.
It's confirmed not to be happening, like Parliament.
Yeah.
Dean, you said something that interested me, is that you said it's not a good time to be a Spurs fan. You're 1 point off top four. I know Newcastle have a game in hand, but you're very much in the race for top four. You have experience of making top four more so than Newcastle. In a run-in, you're probably more likely to make top four than Newcastle. And I know their form's been good and they've got a very good defense and that sort of thing. But at the start of the season, we did say that 6 doesn't go into 4, and that 2 teams of the big 4 would miss out. In this case, it looks like it could be 3. But my feeling is that Newcastle don't have the legs in them to go the whole season. And I do think Spurs get 4. So is it the worst possible outcome for Jurgs to be finishing 4th under Conte, like all things considered?
I don't think...
If Arsenal won the title, it's going to be horrible.
It will be bad. But
just introspect. It's not the worst time to be a Spurs fan.
It's not the worst time, but if you have a look at the outset of the season, 4th was a given almost, and we were trophy hunting. So fine, if you have a look at what's transpired since then, finishing top 4 and having a semi-decent cup run with maybe a chance of doing something, it's not a bad time. And it's probably, I'm backing Spurs to go on a bit of a run now. Our squad's semi-fully fit. Lloris is out for about 6 to 8 weeks. We've got a fairly decent run of fixtures coming up. So it's a good time for Spurs to have a bounce back. And we saw that happening on Sunday. But that trophy still doesn't look as likely as what it did 12 months ago. So that's why if 4th was a trophy, I'd be happy. And even with City cheating, their Carabao Cup win against us doesn't count. So we don't even get that as a trophy. So that's why it's not a bad time, but it's Spurs. So.
Oh wow! You're in the Arsene Wenger days now, Dean. Welcome to the Arsene Wenger era, where 4th is a trophy.
No, but Arsene Wenger days, it was going from a place where he challenged for a title every year to a point where he was fine with 4th. Spurs are going from being Spurs to challenging for 4th. So I wouldn't say it's like Arsene Wenger, slightly different.
Yeah, no, it is. It is. You hit the nail on the head there. Wahid, obviously you saw City and Arsenal dropping points over the weekend, and you guys gained some points. Are there a lot of people who are talking about the choking syndrome with Arsenal? I get that. But do you feel you could pivot at the end, come through the back door? And this is obviously me asking you this question before Leeds, but obviously we know what happened against Leeds. but that comeback was also pretty nice. How are you feeling about your squad right now? Is there a possibility that you could come through the back door?
No, and I've said this on other shows. We're not going to come through the back door. United are going to be comfortably, not comfortably. United will be in the thick of the third and fourth battle. Whether we even make third and fourth is still up for debate because we're not clear in third. And I think that in terms of quality, there's still quite a big gap between us, Arsenal, and City. If you look at the points table, the gap between us and City isn't that big. And I know that people are looking at that thinking, well, maybe United can do something. But United have an insane run of fixtures that they have to navigate. And I think something has to give somewhere along the line. So, no, I don't think United are going to be in the thick of things this season. I don't think there's a backdoor into the title race. It would take something exceptionally mesmerizingly insane for United to end up in the title race come April. We also need to remember that usually in February we start talking about the title race, but this isn't a normal February. We're only 22 games into the season. There's still a hell of a lot of games to be played, and United might still come unstuck when we have. I know we are playing 2 to 3 times a week at the moment, but that's going to catch up with us. And when we lose players like Casemiro and Eriksen both at the same time, you saw what that did to us last night. We had no control of the midfield last night without Casemiro. We had no one linking defense, midfield, and attack without Eriksen. And that Eriksen thing is going to go on for till April, May. So the hallmarks of this Erik ten Hag side have almost been taken away. And I know Casemiro will be back in a couple of weeks, and he'll be back for Barcelona, and he'll be back for the Carabao Cup final and that sort of thing. So he will be playing intermittently, but you can see how short United are when key players are taken out. We don't have good cover for key players. Yeah, the squad isn't bad. It's not brilliant. It can have work done to it. But it's not in a state where you can fight for title. The thing with a team like City is that Rodri's injured. His replacement is just as good as him. If
that's Calvin, whatever his name is.
If Haaland is injured, we've got a World Cup winner and Julian Alvarez coming in for him. They've got insane depth where their squad players are better than our starting players a lot of the time. So no, I don't think United will get involved. I also don't think people should discount City quite yet because City can still go on a hell of a run. They've got an unbelievably good squad, and
that they acquired through cheating.
That they acquired but I do think that in terms of the ability to go on and win 15 games in a row and win the Premier League season, that is still a possibility. I think Arsenal are definitely favourites, and Arsenal will only have themselves to blame if they lose it from here. But I don't think you completely rule City out of this title race as it stands.
So here's that insane thing. Possibly that could happen. Is last week Manchester City were charged by the Premier League for some insane amount of 100 charges that related to financial fair play, relating back to about 2009-10 to 2018. So that Aguero moment could have been acquired through some false cheating, false accounting. There's many other things and many other trophies.
So can I stop you, Paul? It's not that it could have been. I think the evidence is irrefutable. It's damning.
It is there.
It's damning. It's The issue is whether that evidence is admissible and legally obtained. So the facts are Manchester City cheated. Those are the facts. Manchester City have to get to where they are. They have cheated. They deserve to be punished. The big question is whether they will be, whether the evidence that at the Premier League's disposal is admissible in terms of finding them guilty of this offence. So let's not say if they cheated or if they could have cheated. They cheated. They cheated.
Wow.
It's as simple and straightforward as that. Read those emails.
I was using the whole innocent until proven guilty because I know they
But here we go.
But here's the thing, right? It's funny because now they cheated and now we're in a court case to find out if the person or the way they found the information was also through some sort of nefarious way. So we're actually in some little tailspin of whether it's cheating or not and whether the information was done or not. But Wahid, let me ask you this, okay? You I can see that you riled up. How do you feel about the last 10 years being a lie?
So there's two things to consider here. Is that is that it's cheating and it's financial doping and there's sports washing and there's all sorts of things going on there. And I don't know, like it probably sits a bit closer to me because it's our local rivals. Well, for Dean, it would be as if Arsenal had done
Obviously.
this. Like I hate them so much, and to see them having pipped us to titles in the most dramatic fashion possible, in circumstances where they cheated, to have the player to score that goal just riles me up the wrong way. Because to this day, I've never been able to rewatch the Aguero goal. And I think that's probably some of the most tears I've ever shed in my life for that Aguero goal. So yes, it's not nice that that we came second to them under Ole and Jose, but like that bugs me less than that 2011 one where Aguero scored in the last minute. That's the one I really want chalked off.
Dean, how do you feel? I know there was a Carabao Cup final somewhere along the way that could have been yours if they didn't cheat. But when you heard the news, what did you think?
Look, I mean, City are whipping boys, to be honest. Like, I think we saw on Sunday, they haven't scored a goal yet at the new Spurs Stadium. So, like, we've had a decent run against City. So,
I have a nice stat about that one. They have like a 9.7 XG at that new Spurs Stadium, and they haven't scored a goal.
They can't score a goal. Which is fine, but I think the sort of point goes a bit broader. And we obviously, City were charged by UEFA a few years ago as well for sort of similar things. And they said that, well, the evidence was too old and there was the statute of limitations. So it's not new news that's sort of City have done or cheated. But I think the part that puts this sort of differently to that is there's no sort of statute of limitations from what I can see. It's now just basically trying to see that is the evidence admissible or not. And what we've seen in the past with, I don't want to say similar situations, but that you have a look at when Juventus got caught and they got demoted to Serie D. A few years later, they did the same thing and they just got a 15-point deduction like a few weeks ago as well. So one part of cheating doesn't mean you're not going to cheat again. So a punishment for me needs to be, some people are saying, it might be like a few points deduction. I don't think that's harsh enough. I think something quite serious needs to be done and to prevent this from happening going forward. Like you look at the likes of what Chelsea are doing now in the window and everyone's sort of saying how, like no one actually understands how they're actually doing it. And when stuff like this comes to light, you kind of, your thoughts are confirmed or your what you thought might have happened and how it sort of caused gets confirmed. So to prevent something like this happening going forward, I think the punishment needs to be a lot sort of more severe. But the only problem is going to take, I mean, I'm reading like 2 to 5 years for it to get resolved. So 2 to 5 years, what's going to happen?
So I think for me, that's the thing about all of this is that, and obviously you guys all CAs, how financial crime can be hidden and it's hard to prove going forward. So it's going to take years, and City used the statute of limitations at UEFA, so it doesn't count in England, which is great. Yeah. My only issue obviously is that it feels like it's prevalent now. Like I look at Chelsea and I'm like, huh? Like, are we not doing the exact same thing with all their spending and everything else? Because you can't tell me that they've generated over 320 million plus whatever they paid for Harry Potter as a coach. And so, like, it's going to be quite interesting to see how they do it. And obviously, they're amortizing players over 8.5 years and whatever it is. And so, my only issue is how do you make these investigations quicker and punish teams a lot quicker? Because it's been 10 years since Aguero did whatever he did to Wahid, right? What's the punishment? So this is the fun part, right? I looked at the terms of reference of this little thing and I was reading the punishments. The one punishment was to replay the match. So I'm sitting there going, do we bring back
QPR
and bring back Wayne Rooney and have Wahid relive that Crystal Palace moment? No. But the list of punishments are, and this is what I want to know from you guys, right? Demote them out of the league entirely. So take them to the championship. Or the other one is to expel them to non-league football, which I think Wahid would be very happy about. The 15 points deduction.
I would pay money to find a stream to watch Haaland and his mates playing non-football. I would do it.
I'll fly to England. I'll fly to England and watch Haaland rock up at some non-league team with 5
Newport County or something.
Yeah.
Stevenage.
Yeah. Imagine, oh my word. The other thing, obviously, is the points deduction. I don't think the points deduction is fair because you're punishing them for the current for what they've done before. Like this Juventus thing, right? This Juventus thing, like they got a points deduction for stuff that happened before. I like the initial Juventus punishment back in the day when they got demoted and they took all the trophies away. Yeah. The question for me is, Wahid, if they do take the trophies away, do you have a trophy parade for your 3 lost trophies?
No, there's no parades of any such kind. Personally, I think if they do take the trophies away, I wouldn't re-award those trophies. It would just be nobody won the Premier League in those seasons.
Okay.
I think it's too awkward to go and retrospectively award trophies to second and third or second place teams or Carabao Cups to Oaks who didn't win the Carabao Cup. So I
would take it. I would take it in a heartbeat. Tell me that I won a trophy somehow. I'm there. First, I'm front in line.
South Africa's team, Tottenham Hotspur, just winning.
So the thing about the full current season points deduction is this. I don't think that's fair at all because it also rewards Arsenal the most. And Arsenal are the only team in this situation who have not been cheated out of a trophy by City's cheating. If you get...
we knocked them out of the FA Cup.
Liverpool have been cheated out of trophies. United have been cheated out of trophies. People have been cheated out of trophies. And the only team to benefit from a current season point deduction will be the only team to not have been cheated.
Hey, look, we don't know Mikel Arteta's involvement in all of this. He could also be tied to all of this.
Definitely snitched.
Fictitious manager.
He snitched for sure. Yeah. Okay. I don't back that guy at all. He's 100% tittle-tailed on Pep.
So the other thing is how the current group of players is taking these allegations, what it's doing to the team, what it's doing to the morale. Because I looked at that Manchester City team against Tottenham, and yes, Tottenham played well. It was kind of like a new manager bounce of fighting for Antonio Conte was in hospital. We get that, and we love that fight from Tottenham. Yes, doing God's work. But you looked at that City team, and you kind of felt like it was a team that, I don't know if the news had broken to them before the game, but I didn't understand. They didn't have another gear. It was just weird. They were throwing people on, but you were like, but you guys aren't doing anything. And I don't know if they're in the right mental space. You saw Cancelo fought with Pep, and he got shipped out to Bayern Munich for nothing, guys. Like it was like free. It was like take him. What do you think? What do you think it's affect? Is it going to affect their title run?
I think so. I mean, I think you could tell for a long time that things at City weren't as good as they have been previously. Like, you look at the Cancelo deal, it kind of popped up on a Tuesday afternoon, and by the Wednesday, he was a Bayern Munich player. So there's definitely things, and it looks like, I mean, Cancelo was Pep's most trusted player last season. You know, he played almost every single game. He made him that sort of defender midfield position, sort of his own. So there's definitely rumblings within that sort of City squad. We've mentioned it before, where there's a few players that are unhappy, like Kyle Walker and Bernardo Silva and things like that. So I think there's definitely some sort of rumblings there. I don't know if that's also because of this news that maybe they sort of realized this might be coming out, and then that's caused some of the issues. Pep previously have said that he's trusted the club, and if the club says to him everything's fine, he trusts them, and if not, he'll walk away. Will he walk away now if this comes like sort of okay?
But that's my thing.
Well, yeah,
that's my thing. If more information comes out, and they look guilty, they don't even have to be punished. They don't even have to be tried or by this commission or whatever it is. If Pep walks because he's like, oh no, you guys were dishonest, like what happens there? And and I think some people Wahid might think that it's too far away from the players. Like it's a board issue, it's a high level issue, but it does affect them, right?
100% it affects them. And I think you'd be an idiot to think that the players weren't aware of this, because some of the allegations are to the effect of Mancini being paid in an account in Dubai and had an account in England where he was paid. And I would be very surprised if players like Haaland didn't have a backhand type of deal, because the 50 odd million paid to Borussia Dortmund was insanely low for a player of his caliber, and I would find it hard to believe that there wasn't something in there to sweeten the deal. Not necessarily for Haaland. I would say that looking back, you look at them attracting the likes of Aguero and David Silva and Vincent Kompany when this project just started. I would be very surprised if Manchester City were attracting those players without stuff to sweeten the deal, because they didn't show enormous wages to those players back in the day, and it was Manchester City. Robinho signed for them thinking he was signing for Man United. Ultimately, this was the extent when this project started. They didn't know, nobody knew who they were.
I hear you, and I think for me that's the thing about all of this, is that I sit here going, these guys are distracted, and you can go two ways about this, right? You can go into the siege mentality of nobody likes us, everybody's against us, and we're going to try and fight as hard as possible. Or you can go into the other side where we've kind of started seeing it with Cancelo leaving, where everyone's like fighting and bickering at each other, and it's just not a conducive environment. Pep holds a tight line, like we've seen with Arteta and all the other managers. He's willing to ship guys away. But I sit there going, if Arsenal doesn't win it now, there's no other chance, because these guys are seriously, like, I love your team, Dean. I love them to bits, but they weren't playing great football. Like, really? Like, I just sat there going, Oaks, like, what is this? But
I'll tell you. Well, okay, finish your point, and then I'll touch on what.
No, but I'm there. Like, I just that those distractions are like, I don't know if Pep can rein them in. Like, we haven't seen this type of dissension in a City team since Mancini or even Pellegrini.
Which is true, and I think it's also that's why it's weird to me that City are doing what they're doing, because we played them twice in 2 weeks, pretty much, right? And we scored 3 goals against them, but 2 of them came from just out and out mistakes from their back line. Like, Edison passed the ball in the first game, poor pass, and we pounced on it and we scored. This past weekend, Rico Lewis got outpaced by Højbjerg, passes it to Kane, and he scored. So it's these sort of weird mistakes that and I think they've always been there, but they're becoming a lot more prevalent now, which also points to the sign of things aren't 100%, like the players aren't 100% confident in everything that's going on at the moment. And even if you have a look at that City squad, to leave KDB on the bench, when I saw that, I was like, are you sure? Like, is this actually happening? You're coming to our stadium, you beat us 2 weeks ago, and you're leaving out one of the best players in the league on the bench. And you could see that because of that, Haaland gets isolated. When we're watching the match,
no touches in the box.
No touches in the box. And you look at the players that I think City are also trying to get used to, this sort of playing with an actual number 9 that's sort of getting there. But the only guys that really try to look to pass to Haaland are KDB and Gundogan. They are the only guys that are like, wherever I get the ball, I'm going to look up. If I see a blonde guy that looks like a Viking, I'm going to pass it to him. And that's what it is. You look at Bernardo Silva, he was so slow on the ball, and he just tracks back and goes sideways. And that's why I think, Spurs, we didn't play badly, but we try to play them on the counter-attack, which we would always do. We let them have possession, which we'll always do. And it worked at that point, and it's worked for the last couple of times. So we're not going to change our game plan. But that City squad on the weekend definitely had weaknesses, which I think were about the news and everything that was coming on. But also B, I think their game plan was just flawed. coming into that game. So it's a bit of a mix of both. Like, there's things going on, and you're playing people that maybe shouldn't be playing, or you're playing people that trying to new tactics. You got Rico Lewis, who's a youngster, trying to make him a new Cancelo. It's a bit of a weird place. I like him, but he's not Cancelo. So
yeah. One last thing to you before we move on.
Again, like, he's a good player. He's not a left back, and he's not a left back who you'd associate with a Pep Guardiola system. He's a converted centre back. I know they've done that before, played like converted midfield, but like they've played like Delph there in the title-winning season. But again, like, okay, just his attributes don't strike me as a player who's going to work well as a left back. He's not going to tuck into midfield. He's not going to bomb forward on the overlap. He's not going to underlap. He's a defender. He doesn't have that creativity or the engine even that the other fullbacks and wingbacks that you have like possess. So it's a weird situation where it's almost seeming like square pegs in round holes for City.
Yeah.
And like, at this point, I'm almost wondering if Haaland sits back and looks at this project and thinks, I might have chosen badly. Because he chose a team who didn't play to his strengths, and that team needed to adjust to him. And that transition is proving very hard right now. Yes, he hit the ground running. Yes, he scored a lot of goals, but the team as a whole are not as good as they were previously. The team have regressed. And there's other examples of this where players excel, but the team moves backwards, and we've seen one at Man United in the recent past. We're not going to go into that, but that is a case of Manchester City going backwards in a way that they were unable to adapt to this goal-scoring machine that is Erling Haaland.
Yeah, it's quite funny because you think you just put him in there and it just would work.
You win the Champions League,
Yeah, well, they're not.
But that's why I would like everyone's saying, fine, he scored so many goals, he's already outdone the Golden Boot winner from last season. But I'm still, if I had to look at the start of the season, I still want Kane in my team more than Haaland, just in terms of what he brings to the squad, what he can do, the goals that he's still scoring. He's working a lot harder. He's not just that person that's, anyone can score goals in that City squad if they find him. You still want Kane. I would rather have Kane in my team, and I think that's
Kane works to the system because it's similar to what Aguero did. Aguero had to come back in, play as a 10, try to get the ball, link everyone, whereas Haaland stays on an island. And he doesn't
it's about horses for courses, because I genuinely think if you put Haaland in Man United's team, Man United improve exponentially.
Yes, that's because you guys cross the ball in the box.
Haaland's quick, he's the ball into his feet. The way Man United play a lot on the counter attack previously, you put Haaland into Man United's team, you are challenging for the title. But you're putting Haaland into City's team. City are struggling to cope with that type of player, and they regress. So it really was about horses for courses. Haaland at Real Madrid might have been brilliant as the next, as the Benzema replacement. But it was just about the project that he chose. And again, we wonder why he chose that project, and we can go all back to that the ideas behind why he chose that project.
Yeah, look, I think, as Wahid said earlier on, Manchester City cheated. It's affecting their squad right now. They're also whatever underhanded brown envelope they paid for Erling Haaland, maybe it's karma. It's coming back to them. But I know that the two of you want some other sort of retribution, which I wouldn't mind. So we'll find out soon enough. One last thing before we go. Liverpool. Ever since the World Cup, they are bottom of the log. Like, if you took the log, after the World Cup, I think Manchester United is at the top. At the bottom of that log, it's Liverpool. And they got pipped by a Sean Dyche-led Everton that beat Arsenal over the weekend. But we've spoken about what's wrong. What can they do now? Club's on sale. They are looking, also they've got injuries. Jurgen Klopp is denying goals, which is some sort of Stockholm syndrome. Or what can they do? I know what he's going to be like, well, they must do the same thing they've been doing because they're going to end up where they are and they deserve to be there. But football wise, what can they do up until windows closed?
Maybe the inhalers have expired. Maybe they haven't diagnosed enough people with asthma in their squad.
Very, very true.
What can they do right now to improve this season or going forward? Because this season's a write-off. They need to write off the season and plan for the next season, because they used January to buy a forward, which is the only part of their team that didn't need improving. They needed to they needed to improve their defense and they needed to improve their midfield, and they did neither. And it was like hanging curtains when there's a hole in the roof. Like, you don't do that. You need to address your actual issues. So what can they do for this season? Nothing. This season is not going to improve. And if anything, it's going to get worse. Believe me, as a Man United fan, I know that as soon as you start, you have results like this, it spirals. It just gets worse and worse and worse. And they'll start fighting with each other and that sort of thing. So for this season, it's pretty much a write-off. In terms of moving forward, well, I think that would all be dependent on who buys Liverpool and if Liverpool are bought. I will say this, that Liverpool have chosen the worst possible time to sell that club, because when Man United are on the market and Liverpool are on the market, there's one club that a billionaire investor is going to go after, and that one is
Spurs, South African tourism.
Rabid fans. You need to think about the rands and cents, the pounds of it. And an investor is going to be looking at Man United with hard eyes instead of Liverpool. So Liverpool have probably chosen the worst possible time to be on the market. I mean, Man United are very rarely on the market, and there will be lots of investors circling around that golden egg there, whereas Liverpool might not be in the same sort of financial stratosphere as Man United.
Yeah, look, I think for me, just to add on there, Dean, for you, they play Everton this weekend. It's a deadly spiral after what Sean Dyche did over the weekend. Like, what are your thoughts on the situation?
Yeah, well, I mean, also just to build on what Wahid was saying, post the World Cup, they went out and they got Cody Gakpo, and everyone was like, okay, Luis Diaz cover, fine, but again, there's so many holes. And if you look at their performances since I saw a stat the other day that their top goal scorer is Wout Faes from Leicester, because he scored 2 own goals. So that's their top scorer from post World Cup. And you can look at that and say, well, then front line, you need some new bodies in there. But it's pure midfield. They just have absolutely no one. Fabinho is playing terrible. Thiago is trying his absolute best, but he can't do anything. And I think a loss against Everton in the Merseyside derby, that's just going to send Liverpool. I mean, they're already in meltdown. I think all of us have seen the videos of Liverpool fans just absolutely losing it. But if they go ahead and lose to Everton side, which played fairly okay against Arsenal, I mean, I wouldn't say it's pretty football, but that's why you got Sean Dyche in there. There's a real risk that they do lose that game. And then you start looking at, you, as you said, you bottom of the log post World Cup, you nowhere near top 4. You've got a manager that's been full of excuses for a long time. And you start saying, well, if the club's for sale, do we start looking at then rebuilding? Do we start saying, well, who are the people that we need to start building this club around and get some of the youth back or get some youngsters in there and try and build something around there? Because I agree with Wahid. This season's gone. Like, I don't think there's a way they break back into top 4 from here. Especially given
with football,
the squad.
But with football, a bad run of games can get a manager fired or get an amicable parting of ways. Is that in the future, especially with the way this man's complaining?
I mean, to fire Klopp, I think there's some Liverpool fans that love Klopp more than they love their own children. So I don't see Liverpool wanting to get rid of Klopp anytime soon, or I don't think the fans want to get rid of Klopp. I don't think that's the issue. I think it's the personnel, and they need to get bodies through the door and get bodies out of the door, more importantly, for the guys that just aren't performing. That's more what you want to see, but it's not going to happen.
Let's list those players who are not performing, because it's actually easier to list the players that are performing, because you look at the likes of the most celebrated players in that club, like the likes of Andy Robertson, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Van Dijk, Mo Salah, they have been well short of the mark. They are nowhere. So if you're talking about players who need to get out of that club, who are they? Because at the moment, that list is like the whole squad.
And they've extended majority of them.
We can talk about it because that midfield will go at the end of the season. Henderson, I think Henderson will stick around, but the others, Keita's out of contract, Milner's old. That needs rejigging. And fine, say you get a few out and you get a few in the door. I've learned at Man United that you're not going to get a full rehaul of a midfield in one summer. So this is a 3 transfer window story, and then where else? So if all your effort goes into just midfield in the next 3 transfer windows to sort out your midfield, which is going to take 2 transfer windows at a minimum to sort out that midfield. Other portions of your squad
is going to fall flat.
Other portions of your squad in the front and the back start to crumble, and then you sort of playing catch up, which is exactly what Man United have done for a very long time. You sort of like you blotting patches around the field, and you say, well, this is a problem now, so let's sort this out now. Let's save a few cents for the next transfer window. Next transfer window runs around, but you haven't addressed another issue in the squad, and it all just ends up spiraling, which is exactly what's happening there. So go sort out your midfield, but then what about replacing Mo Salah? He's not young anymore. What about understanding that Van Dijk is not the player he was? Is it bad form or is it age? Like you need to figure that out. And moving forward, that is going to be a very difficult task. Jurgen Klopp is probably the person to do that. He's probably the person to do that. However, there is a chance that Klopp has what I call a Fergie complex, insofar as that he might be quite stubborn to admit a lot of these things. He might be a bit stubborn to admit that his star boy Salah has aged a bit, or that the rock of his defense, Van Dijk, is no longer good enough. That type of thing. So Fergie developed that type of idea at some point, and you wonder if Klopp would also fall trap to that type of thing. Will he be ruthless? Is what I'm asking.
Yeah, look, Mo Salah just signed a contract extension, so you've got him on the books for the next 3 years, which might be a little bit of a situation for them. The other thing is the sale of the club. If you want to do this plan that Wahid so articulated, you need to know that you've got somebody behind you with the Rands to back you in the next 3 summers, or even in this one, because this one's important. Because what will happen and what might happen is that Liverpool might have 2 seasons like this, and they go into that cycle at the back end of the noughties, where they were just sometimes we make Champions League, sometimes we don't. They just went into that irrelevant phase, and then you start going through the Dalglish and the Brendan Rodgers era, where they had a.
I wish the Roy Hodgson years back on them. I wish the Paul years back on them. Please, God, let them sign another Paul Konchesky.
But if you have a look at that Liverpool, the latest business Liverpool have done, like I think Klopp had a few strokes of genius, or Liverpool had a few strokes of genius, like getting Robertson in from Hull, great move that paid off, and the guy, great player, right? Getting Salah in, and he came from Italy, and everyone was like, okay, cool, that's amazing, it worked. But you look at some of the more recent transfers that they've done, and you look at like Konate, for example. He's not a bad defender, but he's not what everyone thought he was going to be. You look at what they did in the summer in R2, and you like, has he even put a Liverpool shirt on? He came in injured, and he's still injured, is he not? So the next question is, well, keep Klopp, but then is the way that the transfers are sort of being planned at the current moment, is that actually, do you need better personnel in there, like sporting directors and things like that are looking for these people, scouting the people, and because they're bringing in junk, to be honest. They're bringing in,
but they let go of the guy who did those transfers. Well, he left. I don't know what his name is, Michael somebody, very famous name.
Edwards,
Michael Edwards. There it is. Yeah, he decided to take a sabbatical or a break, and that's been part of the problems that they've had, is that scouting network of being able to pick up guys from Hull or somewhere that was being relegated is no longer there. And
it's no longer there. What they're doing instead is falling trap to Man United. Man United's last few years in signing a guy like Darwin Núñez for 80 million euros or whatever insane price tag was there, because you've almost bought into the hype around a player without necessarily doing the due diligence around him. Is he good? Maybe. Is he good enough? I don't think so. I don't think this is the type of player who's going to score 25 goals ever in a season. I don't think.
But the same can be said about Gakpo. He's good. I don't think any of us can sit here and say Cody Gakpo is a bad player. But again, is he a Liverpool type player that's going to come in and change a game off the left?
I think they are banking on upside. Because I think for me, Cody Gakpo needs to be in a system where
when everybody's fit, when Luis Diaz is fit, when Darwin Núñez is fit, when Diogo Jota is fit, and when Salah's fit, Cody Gakpo isn't going to smell minutes. And you've just spent £37 million on a player that isn't going to get any minutes. When your midfield needs a rehaul, that money could have been taken to Bayern Munich and said, well, we don't want Sabitzer on loan, we want him full time. Let's take him for 30 million. Sabitzer could have done a job for Liverpool for the next couple of months. There were deals to be done in the midfield that could have gotten Liverpool into maybe 7th or 8th instead of fighting for 11th and 10th.
Even because if you look at Oxlade-Chamberlain's contract is ending, Naby Keita's contract is ending, James Milner, you should have moved off of one of those in January to try and recoup some cash.
Aura is another deal that they could have easily done for a lot less money than they spent on Cody Gakpo, and it would have filled a hole in the squad that they actually needed filling.
Yeah. And that's it. I think you guys.
You were desperate desperately wanting Hussam Aura.
Hey, dude. Ooh, we've come out of there. We've come out of there now.
Mudryk version 1.0.
Dude, even Mudryk, you watch him in Chelsea. You're like, wait, what happened to the guy who played against Real Madrid? But yeah, we'll talk about Chelsea some other time. I think this season's weird because as Wahid started the show telling Dean that he can make top 4, we said 6 doesn't go into 4, 2 left, 2 are effectively out. That's Chelsea and Liverpool. There's one weird team standing there in the middle there between you and Manchester United, Dean. So it could be the season you keep that run of Champions League going. Just don't fall into Europa League and deal with Barcelona like Manchester United have. But it's going to be an interesting week. Manchester United play Leeds again, which is weird. I don't know what's going on.
So weird how that's played out. So weird.
Yeah, and then there's a top of the table clash between Arsenal and City happening next week, Wednesday. There's also that Merseyside derby on Monday, which is the problem. And this is the thing for Klopp, right? It's a single game. Everyone will be watching you. It's not like on a Sunday where there's 3 teams. Everyone's watching you. And Sean Dyche's biggest game ever as a manager is this weekend. But they're looking good. They could cause surprises. Outside of that, gents, thank you very much for joining. Remember, South Africa's team is Tottenham Hotspur. So, go do the Lord's work. Outside of that, Arsenal still on top of the log. Thank you. But thank you very much, Wahid. Thank you very much, Dean. Have a great day. Everybody, remember, go to Classic Shirts today. The discount is Cheapseats 99. Outside of that, goodbye, good night, and le sale, kakahiso.